Good morning, everybody. Uh, Today's class is about audition or hearing, wherein you'll come across what is sound, the characteristics of sound, and the mechanism of hearing. Along with that, you should know the functions of external ear, middle ear, and inner ear. The sound, the sense of hearing is based on sound. And what is sound? It is produced by vibration of objects. It causes alternate compression and rarefaction. As you all know, compression means molecules coming close to each other where the pressure increases, and rarefaction means the molecules get widely separated where the pressure decreases. So the next is the qualities of the sound. These are the characteristics of the sound, where loudness depicts the intensity and pitch depicts the frequency. Along with that, you should know what is timbre and intensity. And how is the wave transmitted in the ear, and the role of external ear and the middle ear. Sound, as I told, it is sensation produced by vibratory disturbance in environment, transmission of a wave motion in the form of compression and rarefaction. Movement of sound bodies depend on inertia, elasticity and resistance of the air. It is transmitted as waves, airborne sound. The speed of conduction varies with medium. The sound is transmitted through gas, liquid and solid medium with different velocities of conduction. It is not transmitted through vacuum. The character of sound is determined on, as I told you, the amplitude and frequency. So the air travels at a rate of at 20 degrees with a speed of around 344 millimeters per second, 4 times higher in the water and 15 times in solid. So it is more in the air. So when air waves pass from one medium to another, example air to water, there is greater acoustic resistance, like from the middle ear to the internal ear, from the air medium to the fluid medium, that is the cochlear fluid. The most sound waves are reflected back to air at the boundary. So much less sound energy is transmitted to the water. That means most of the air is deflected back. So what are the qualities and quantities of sound? The three qualities are the loudness, pitch, timbre and intensity. Loudness depends on the amplitude of sound waves. What do you mean by amplitude? It is the extent of displacement of molecules during vibration. It is determined by the difference between the pressures of the molecules in the zone of compression and rarefaction. Greater the amplitude, the louder the sound. So the intensity of the sound depends on sound energy. Loudness is dependent on sensitivity of the ear and distance of the ear from the source. So pitch is nothing but frequency. It's the number of the sound waves occurring in unit time. That is, the unit is hertz. Higher the frequency, greater the pitch. So timbre is, when you come across timbre, it's a property by which one can differentiate between two tones of same pitch and intensity. This is applied to musical instruments. The sounds of repeating pattern or the same frequency perceived is the musical sound. Vibrating tuning fork has pure tone. Pure tone and overtone determine the timbre. So there can be complex tone if the mixture of different frequencies is called. The repetition of complex tone at periodic interval is called as music. If the complex tone occurs at irregular intervals, that means the waves without a regular pattern is noise. Intensity is measured in terms of maximum pressure change at tympanic membrane. It is very difficult to measure. So they've used a convenient scale change of intensity at the tympanic membrane, and the unit is bell, and it is 1 by bell is decibel. So you have normal conversation is around 60 decibel. So the audible sound is 0 decibel. So when you are whispering, it is around 30 decibel, and in heavy traffic it is 90 decibel, and 120 decibel is therefore the limit of tolerance of the ear. Human ear can perceive sound frequencies with a range of 20 to 20,000 cycles per second. So if it is less than 20, it is called infrasonic sounds, and if it is more than 16,000, it's called ultrasonic. Pitch discrimination is maximal between frequency range of 1000 to 4000 frequency. A male converses at a frequency of 120 Hz and a female with 250 Hz. So this is how the sound is perceived with different ears. The signals coming from left reach the brain first because of the nearer, and from the right side it is reached later. So how is the conduction of sound or transmission of sound is take place in the ear? So you all know that the basic principle is the physiology of audition is ear acts as a transducer. It converts mechanical energy to electrical impulses which reaches the auditory cortex where sound is appreciated. So ear converts the sound waves in external environment into action potential in the auditory nerve. The waves are transmitted as in the rigid auditory meatus, compliant tympanic membrane, where they change greatly by the tympanic membrane, and the ear ossicles are set into motion, and this results in movement of the foot plate of stapes, resulting in the movement or the conduction of the sound waves into the cochlear fluid, setting into the vibration of the basilar membrane. The movement sets up the waves in the fluid of the inner ear. Action of waves on the organ of corte results in action potential in the nerve fibers of the auditory nerve. So you can see the sound waves strike the tympanic membrane, and they results in vibration. The sound wave energy is transmitted to the three bones of the middle ear, that is the ossicular chain, the malleus, incus, and stapes. The stapes is attached to the membrane of the oval window. The vibration of the oval window creates the fluid waves within the cochlea. The fluid waves push on the flexible membrane of the cochlear duct. The energy from the waves transfers across the cochlear duct into the tympanic duct. It is dissipated back to the middle ear at the secondary tympanic membrane, also called as round window. So you can see the three compartments, which are the scala vestibuli, scala media, and scala tympani. The ear cells within the cochlear duct create action potential in the sensory neurons with the movement of the stereocilia. When if it is towards the longer, it causes high depolarization. If the movement is towards the shorter cilia, it results in hyperpolarization, which will be coming to know in the next slides. So what's the role of the pinna? The pinna can amplify the sound waves to a very small extent by collecting the sound waves, funneling and localization of the sound waves. As you all know, it's around 2.5 centimeters, the external auditory canal. It is directed medially, and the external auditory meatus protects from injury, prevents foreign body entering, and it amplifies the sound as it directs towards the tympanic membrane, resulting in vibration of the tympanic membrane. It maintains favorable temperature and humidity for eardrum. In this external auditory meatus, there can be collection of wax called as ear wax or cerumen, which is nothing but secretion of ceruminous glands and sebaceous. Excessive secretion accumulation of ear wax can result in conductive deafness. The tympanic membrane which you will be coming across is a white glistening membrane which separates the external from the middle ear. In the outer side it is covered by skin, and the middle ear side it is covered by mucous membrane. The sound waves which is transmitted as they strike the tympanic membrane results in the vibration of the tympanic membrane. As tympanic membrane has very little inertia and it is aperiodic and doesn't have frequency of its own, it can get vibrated to any frequency. So when sound wave strikes the tympanic membrane, it results in vibration of the same frequency as the sound, acting like a resonator. So it acts as a resonator. It is sensitive to pressure changes produced by sound waves on its external surface. So it acts as a pressure receiver. So the handle of the malleus draws the tympanic membrane inward with the contraction of the tensor tympani and prevents the membrane from continuing to vibrate after the sound wave stops. So it is critically dampening the movement and stops vibrating immediately after the sound ceases. So it acts as a resonator, a receiver, and it critically dampens the vibration after the sound ceases. The ossicular chain, which is the malleus, incus, and the stapes. The malleus and incus act as a single unit, and the stapes is attached to the oval window. So movement of the tympanic membrane or the vibration of the tympanic membrane results in the handle of the malleus to move, and it rocks on the axis through the junction of the long and short process of the incus, resulting in vibration of the incus, which in turn causes the head of the stapes to move the footplate of the stapes at the oval window, resulting in vibration of fluid in the inner ear. This is nothing but how the air sound energy is conducted, as the middle ear acts as a conduit for conversion of the mechanical to the acts as a conduit to the movement of or transmission of air from the middle ear to the internal ear. So this ossicular chain system acts as a lever. So as I told you, the handle of the malleus and the long process of the incus as acting as a fulcrum at the tympanic membrane. It converts resonant vibrations of the tympanic membrane into movement of stapes against the perilimb filled in the scella vestibuli. Thereby the vibration is set in, or the travelling wave is set in. The ossicular conduction is more important, and it's a normal mode of transmission. If the ossicular system is not functioning as an otosclerosis, the sound energy will be deflected because the energy is more, or the impedance is more in the fluid medium compared to the middle ear. Thereby there is a loss of around 60 decibels, and this is nothing but for a better transmission of air from the middle ear to the external ear. We need ossicular conduction through the ossicles. If in the absence of ossicular conduction, it is called as acoustic conduction. For example, in a disease like otosclerosis, where the base of the stapes is fixed, the movement is affected and thereby impairing the hearing. The alternate pathway is the bone conduction, called as the acoustic conduction. So as I told you, the transmission is through the handle of the malleus to the long process, which acts as an axis on a rotation of antero-posterior direction and resulting in the movement of footplate of stapes, causing the vibration in the cochlear fluid. This results in reduction in sound energy or wastage of sound energy of around 60 decibels. And if ossicular coupling or the ossicles are damaged, it can result directly into what is called as conduction without the ossicles, that is called as acoustic coupling, where there is a loss of around sound energy. So acoustic coupling and ossicular coupling. The ossicular coupling is dependent on the area or the areal difference between the tympanic membrane towards the footplate. This is around 55 square meter towards 3 square meter. So the area is around 20 times lesser as it reaches the footplate of stapes, and the lever action between the handle of the malleus and the long process of the incus. As we see, the axis of rotation of the handle of the malleus and the long process of the incus, which causes a force to be generated. If there is a lesser force, there is more force transmitted along the long process of the incus towards the foot plate or the stapes, and this is mainly because of the axis of rotation. And you can see the area of the tympanic membrane towards the foot plate or stapes, it's around 10, there is a reduction of around 20 times, and this results in, or it assists in impedance matching, or it helps in matching the sound wave or reduction in loss of the sound energy, as we discussed if there is only acoustic coupling. So the importance of ossicular conduction or impedance matching. So what has to be matched? The middle ear contains air, whereas the inner ear contains the cochlear fluid. Sound must be transmitted from the air to the fluid medium. As the fluid has inertia, waves do not readily pass through medium of different acoustic resistance. So it is reflected back at the boundary between the media. So water has a greater resistance to air. So most of the energy is deflected. Only a fraction of the sound energy will be transmitted from middle ear. This is prevented by what is the ossicular conduction or impedance matching. The acoustic system must accommodate for lost energy between fluids. As you see, the acoustic boundary created by the density of the difference of air and the fluid compromises the transmission of sound, and most of them is deflected back. So you can see 97 to 99% of acoustic energy is reflected from water, and only 3% is transmitted through the fluid medium. So the advantages of ossicular conduction are, it ensures delivery of sound energy to oval window rather than the booth, and it amplifies or magnifies the pressure at the oval window. So impedance matching is to amplify the sound energy. This is brought about by the areal ratio, that is the surface area of tympanic membrane is around 50 square millimeter, and to the area of oval window, which is around 3. So the pressure is magnified 17 times. 50 by 3 is 17. So the handle of the second is the lever ratio. The first one is areal ratio, second is the lever ratio, and this is brought about by the handle of the malleus, which is 1.3 times long, that of the long process of the incus. Thus the pressure is magnified 1.3 times by the lever ratio. So there is an increase in the sound energy by 22 times. This is by 17 by the areal ratio and 1.3 by the lever ratio. The actual increase is around 10-fold due to damping effect and friction, and this is called impedance matching. So it is matching the fluid medium to the air medium, that is between the sound waves in air and vibration fluid. Vibration ensures large amount of sound energy is transmitted to fluid in the inner ear. So adherence to the motion or total opposition to motion is called impedance. So impedance is mainly by stiffness, resistance and mass of the membrane. Opposition of system to the flow of energy into it and through it. Inner ear is a fluid, therefore the middle ear must overcome or match the impedance. So the second function, the first one was it acts as a conduit of air, second is impedance matching, the third function is the attenuation reflex or the protective mechanism where the loud sounds with low frequency can damage the air. This is protected by the two muscles, mainly the tensor tympani and the stapedius. Tensor tympani and stapedius. So the nature, this is mainly by the nature of movement of the stapes and the way in which the loud sounds or low frequency evoke tympanic reflex. So what is tympanic reflex? This is mainly the attenuation of loud sounds. When the ear is exposed to a loud sound, there is reflex contraction of tensor tympani and stapedius. Sound waves having frequency greater than 1000 Hz can damage the auditory receptors. So these sounds are attenuated and thus the cochlea is protected. By tympanic reflex, the ear sensitivity can be decreased by 30 to 50 decibels since there is a latent period of around 10 to 15 milliseconds for reflex contraction. They cannot protect the inner ear from abrupt unexpected sounds such as pistol shot very near to the ear. So tympanic reflex is also called as attenuation reflex where there is contraction of tensor tympani which tenses the tympanic membrane and pulls it away, and also the contraction of the staped pulls the foot plate or the stapes out of the oval window, thereby preventing the damage of the internal ear. Movement of the ossicular chain is restricted, resulting in impairment of sound conduction of sounds below 1000 frequency, enhancing only the range between 1300 to 1800 and attenuation above 2000. So this is how the tensor tympani muscle attaches to the tympanic membrane and the stapedius muscle pulls the stapes out of the oval window and causes the tympanic membrane rigid or taut. So the reflex has a latent period of 50 to 150 milliseconds. It is unable to protect against brief intense stimuli like gunshot. Blast injuries can result in deafness. When a person talks, collateral signals sent to the muscle reduce his own sensitivity. So this is though dampening the low frequency, and this is called as masking, so that speech will not overstimulate hearing mechanism. The fourth is equalization of pressure by the eustachian tube, that is the pharyngotympanic tube. So this plays a role in aviation and mountaineering with space travel. So the pressures on both the sides should be equal. As you all know, the eustachian tube connects to the pharynx, and there can be eustachian catarrh which can be blocked and resulting in pain in the ear. So the next function, before we go to the inner ear, we have four functions of the middle ear. First is it acts as a conduit for transmission of air. Second is the impedance matching, which is dependent on aerial ratio and lever ratio. How many times is the sound magnified or amplified? 22 times. The third is the tympanic or attenuation reflex. Once again, what is impedance matching between air and fluid? When sound waves is transmitted from one medium to another, which differs in their acoustic impedance, most of the sound energy is lost due to mismatch between acoustic impedance of the two media. Because of the air in between and amplification of sound, there is an impedance matching to about 75% in the range of frequency between 300 to 3000. As you all know, this is this happens when there is otosclerosis, where the bony ossicles do not vibrate and the receptors for hearing depend solely on the vibration transmitted to the temporal bone. And the second function is third function is tympanic reflex. Fourth is the masking of the low frequency or critically dampens, which helps in the hearing through or the speech with the voice frequency. And the last is the equalization of air, that is through the eustachian tube. The inner ear is helps in, it has two parts. So what are the two parts? It has the cochlea, which converts the sound energy into the electrical impulses occurring in the cochlea, and the vestibular apparatus, which helps in the balance. So cochlea is a complicated structure. It is the shape of a snail. As you all know, the inner ear has two parts, the bony labyrinth and membranous labyrinth. The bony labyrinth is in the petrous part of the temporal bone. The membranous labyrinth is in the bony labyrinth. Inside the bony labyrinth is the endolimb is present. Perilimb is present between membranous and bony labyrinth. The labyrinthine structures which helps in balance and equilibrium are the cochlea, the semicircular canal, the utricle and saccule. Today's class will be dealing only about hearing, that is about cochlea. Cochlea has a shape of snail, and hence the name. It is a coiled tube around a structure called modulus. It takes around 2 and 3.5 turns. If the tube is elongated, it has a length of around 35 mm and a diameter of 3 mm. The coil structure has 3 compartments separated by 2 membranes. This compartmentalization is mainly by the 2 membranes, which takes the origin from modulus. The 2 membranes are the Reissner's membrane and the basilar membrane. As you all know, the 3 compartments are the scala vestibuli, the scala media and the scala tympani. So the end nearest to the middle ear is called the base of the cochlea, and opposite towards the helicotrama, where the vestibuli and the scala media meet, is the apex. It's a tubular structure and tightly coiled in a spiral. So it has 3 compartments, vestibuli, media and tympani. And this is how the Reissner's membrane separate the scala vestibuli from the media, and these two media and scala media and scala vestibuli act as a functional unit. They act together in the mechanism of hearing, whereas the basilar membrane divides the scala media and the scala tympani. So the two membrane are the Reissner membrane or vestibular membrane, and the basilar membrane, where the organ of Corti is placed. The scala vestibuli and scala tympani communicate with each other through the opening called helicotrama. The scala media is independent compartment throughout the length of the cochlea. The scala media is separated from scala vestibuli by Reissner's membrane, whereas the scala media is separated from scala tympani by the basilar membrane. The oval window separates the scala vestibuli from the middle ear. The round window separates the scala tympani from the middle ear. As you all know, the oval window and round window are membrane covered opening in the bone. In the scala vestibuli and scala tympani, the fluid which is present is called as perilymph, which resembles the extracellular fluid or the spinal fluid, which has high sodium and low potassium concentration, whereas the scala media contains fluid called endolymph, which resembles the intracellular fluid, which is rich in potassium and low in sodium. So this is the receptor for hearing. We can see the inner ear cells with the stereocilia and the outer ear cells. The inner ear cells are 3500 in number, whereas it has rich innervation whereas the outer hair cells, which are 20,000 number, have lesser innervation. That means one nerve fibers innervates many outer hair cells based on the principle of convergence. So you can see how the basilar membrane is placed with a tunnel of corti, and we have two rods of corti which differentiates the outer hair cells and the inner hair cells, and it pierces the reticular membrane and it is embedded in the tectorial membrane, the gelatinous tectorial membrane. So the functions are, or the mainly the action potential are generated by the inner hair cells with the movement of stereocilia. As I told in the first initially, when the movement of the stereocilia is towards the long or the lengthier stereocilia, there is depolarization. If it is movement towards the shorter part of the stereocilia, it is resulting in when there is movement of the basilar membrane along with the organ of corti, due to the passage of a sound, a shear force is produced due to relative lateral displacement of the basilar membrane and tectorial membrane. So the hair cells move in relation to the tectorial membrane and leads to bending of the stereocilia. If the cilia moves towards the longer cilia, the hair cells are depolarized, whereas they are hyperpolarized due to the bending of cilia in opposite direction. So the organ of corti is the sense of hearing. It is the receptor. Mainly the receptors are the hair cells, which conducts the sound energy into the nerve cells. That means it converts the sound energy into the action potential in the nerve cells. It is situated in the scella media over the basilar membrane. The organ of corti extends along the whole length of cochlea that's around the basilar membrane on the scella. It's around 35 mm with a 3 mm diameter. The organ of corti extends along the whole length of the cochlea. It is partitioned by two rows of peculiar cells called as pillar cells. The pillar cells enclose the tunnel of corti. Outside of the tunnel of the outer side are three rows of outer hair cells, and the inner cell is intercepted between hair cells or supporting cells. The hair cells and the supporting cells are connected to each other by tight junctions. The tight junctions form a surface known as Reschn's lamina. So hair cells are receptor for hearing. There are about 3,000 inner hair cells and 20,000 outer hair cells. The inner cells are mainly involved in auditory perception and discrimination. The outer hair cells are believed to control the sensitivity of the inner hair cells to the sound. Both inner and outer cells contribute to integrated responses in auditory afferent. The hair cells contain at their apexes, which are the stereocilia. So if you can see the number, the stereocilia project upward out of the reticular lamina into the gelatinous covering called tectorial membrane. The tectorial membrane is thin, flexible, gelatinous acellular flap that covers the row of cells. The endolymph of the scella media freely diffuses into the tectorial membrane. The tunnel of the corti is filled by perilymph diffusing from the scella tympani. Thus, the stereocilia of the hair cells are immersed in endolymph. The body of hair cells below the reticular lamina is immersed in perilymph. The inner hair cells have fine hairs called as stereocilia. There are about 50 to 150 stereocilia present with graduations in different height. That means the increase in the height. The height gradually increases towards the lateral edge of the hair cells. The base of the hair cell is supplied by the axons of cochlear division of vestibulocochlear nerve, that is the eighth cranial nerve, they are predominantly afferent. The afferent fibers also innervate the air cells, but they end presynaptically on afferent fibers. The inner air cells are actually the receptors for hearing. Though they constitute 15 to 20% of air cell population, they receive 95% of the afferent nerve ending. So predominantly the inner ear cells are mainly involved in auditory perception and discrimination. The outer ear cells are cylindrical in shape. They contain stereocilia at the apex. The base of the cell receives efferent innervation from superior olivary nucleus. Stereocilia of the inner ear cells, about 50 in number, are present in 3 parallel rows. The stereocilia of outer ear cells, which are about 100 in number, are present in W-shaped formation. The tips of the cilia are linked to each other by minute strands called as tip links. When sound wave strikes the oval window through the footplate or the stripes, it is pushed inwards, thereby creating vibration or pressure changes in the scala vestibuli. This pressure from scala vestibuli is transmitted to scala media due to vibration of Reissner's membrane. So to understand this, we have, as you can see, the fluid is transmitted. So we came to know what is the external ear. It acts as a funneling. It can amplify the sound and directs and localizes the sound. So what happens is, when the sound waves enter the external ear, it hits the tympanic membrane, which then vibrates accordingly. This moves the ossicular chain. The vibration is then transmitted or transferred through the hair cells with the movement of through the oval window due to movement of footplate or step. So to prevent the inertia, we have impedance matching. So movement of the footplate or steps transmit the sound pressure in the scala vestibuli, and waves are produced in the perilymph. As you can see how the air cells are getting depolarized and due to the vibration. The waves are produced in the perilymph. The pressure then passes to the scala media. This moves the basilar membrane up and down with the air cells on it, leading to generation of receptor potential. The pressure is then transmitted to scala and tympani and ultimately released through the bulging of the round window, and this is because the energy of sound waves usually fails to overcome the inertia of perilymph and moves transversely across the cochlea through the point of determination of the frequency of the sound waves. So how does the air cell transduction? As you all know, the apical part contain rod-shaped process called airs. They are called stereocilia. Stereocilia progressively increase in length. The stereocilia are connected by extracellular filament called tip links. These tip links are helpful in transduction of mechanical changes through spring-gated ion channels. They have ion channel and where the potassium enter. These are cation sensitive channels allowing movement of potassium and calcium into the air cells from the apical portion. Bending of the stereocilia in the direction of the longer one causes opening of potassium channel, thereby resulting in rapid movement of cations causing depolarization of the cell. Movement of the cilia in the opposite direction results in hyperpolarization. Thereby the receptor potential is generated in the air cells, releasing the neurotransmitter such as glutamate to stimulate the cochlear nerve. The viscous but elastic tectorial membrane lies over the stereocilia. The resting membrane potential of the air cells is around -60. So the inner ear cells are the primary auditory receptor generating the action potential, contributing to about 90% of auditory nerve stimulation. These are mainly due to deflection with the movement. Whenever there is vibration of the scala tympani, with the vibration there is movement of basilar membrane, which results in the stimulation of the air cells, causing the movement of cilia. If it is towards the longer cilia, it causes depolarization, resulting to cation sensitive channels, causing deflection of the cilia opens the mechanically gated ion channels. Small positively charged potassium enters the air cells from the endolimb present in the scala media. Influx of positive ions produce receptor potential. So the receptor potential opens the voltage gated calcium channel. The entry of the calcium channel occurs at the base of the cell, resulting in release of neurotransmitter, which binds to the receptor and triggers action potential in the nerve. Thus, mechanical signal of the sound is converted to electrical signal, mainly the action potential. So the air cells are leaky to calcium channels. Continuous leak of calcium channels result in tonic release of neurotransmitter into synapse. This tonic release of neurotransmitter helps in keeping the hair cells in readiness to respond to mechanical system. The outer air cells increase the amplitude and clarity of the sound, whereas the inner air cells are primary auditory receptor. Further, the outer air cells conduct the sensitivity of the inner air cells at different pitches. This is called as tuning of the receptor system. The outer air cells function as cochlear amplifier, depolarizing the outer air cells, causing the contraction of motor protein called as prestin. The prestin molecules attached to one another cause contraction of the hair cell, resulting in electromotility. The importance of outer air cells is appreciated by noting the significant hearing loss following damage to outer air cells with intact air cells. So next class we'll be seeing the action potential or endocochlear potential with cochlear microphoning. So in today's class we came across the amplitude or the loudness, which is determined by the unit of decibel, with the frequency, which is the pitch with timbre, and these are the characteristics. And you came across how the sound energy is transmitted along the external ear into the middle ear, and it is conducted in the internal ear, which is a fluid medium. The middle ear mainly has the function as impedance matching and attenuation reflex with equalization of sound air. Thank you.